are. It's a rainy Friday, so I thought I'll do you another class and keep you busy for this miserable weather when you're not out gardening. So I hope you're all keeping well, and thanks for all the comments on all the classes. It's lovely to hear from you all, sort of hear from you, you know what I mean. So thank you for that. If there's any questions you've got about the classes, just drop me a message, however, WhatsApp, text, Facebook, I don't mind how you do it. If you've got any questions or if you've got any requests, because I'm just keep bashing this out, and so if there's any particular bits you want, just give me a message. I'll do my best to put them in. Right then, so we're going to start lying down today. If you don't like the lie down, you prefer the standing warm-up, flip back to the other class for the standing warm-up and come and join us later. So you can mix them about a bit if you want to. You're starting to get techie. Right, so otherwise we're going to start lying down. So again, just check your space before you start. Make sure you've got enough space. You've got everything you need. So you might want a cushion, you might want a towel, you'll want some water. And get yourself comfy, so down we get. Shoulders relax, knees bent or straight, remember whatever feels most comfortable for you today. Move the hips around, move the shoulders around, get yourself comfortable. And then just settle and breathe. So focus on your breathing. Close your eyes if you want to. And feel your ribcage expand and contract as you breathe in and out. Allow everything just to settle and quieten. Actually, I've decided I'm just going to stop here for an hour. Yeah. Alright, then you're going to start to turn your head from side to side. So remember, you can put a cushion or a block if you've got one underneath your head. Especially you need that if your neck's a bit arched. So you need to just put something under your head to lengthen the neck out. If you're feeling a bit tight in the lower back, try a different leg position, bent or straight, or just move your feet around a bit till your back feels a bit more comfortable. Start to lengthen out along your mat, so you're just giving your spine a little bit of a stretch as you lie here. Turn your head to one side and just leave it there while you breathe in and out. Just increase the stretch down the neck. And then over to the other side. If you start to get a little bit dizzy lying down here, you can do these sitting up, remember, we just want to mobilise the neck, so sitting up is fine if you get a bit dizzy lying down. And then bring your head back to centre, reset the shoulders, reset the hips, and we'll start with the arm circling, so bend your arm and circle it round, stirring around inside that shoulder joint. Hope you've all had a good week. I can't believe another week's gone by. And then round the other way. Good. Stay on that arm, and if you want to, make it into a straight arm. So we're keeping the rib cage down, so we're isolating the move just out of the shoulder. Both directions, just loosening it up. Then you can move over to your other arm. So start with it bent and stir around. So listen to your body, especially in the warm-up, because it's giving you lots of useful information about how the rest of the class is going to go. So if this move feels a little bit tight, it's telling you this shoulder needs a bit more work. So stay with the arm bent for a bit longer. And when that arm feels a little bit looser, then if you want to, go into the straight arm. But if doing the straight arm is forcing you to move your rib cage, then that's too much work, so go back to a bent arm again. Again, you can do that in both directions if you fancy it. Then we bring both arms in together. So a little squeeze in the centre, not enough to bend you in the middle, but just to keep the rib cage down. So a little squeeze of your ribs to your hips, and then start to circle the arms back. So we're keeping the torso nice and still, so we can isolate into the shoulders, get those shoulders loosening up. Circle gets a little bit bigger. If it's clunking and clicking, go back to the bent arm or just one arm if you want to, if it's a little bit tight still. And then if you want, leave your arms back. You can bend your elbows if you want to, so your hands can touch the floor. And just give those shoulders a bit more stretch. You probably find one side's looser than the other. If the static stretch doesn't suit you, carry on with the circling. And then hands underneath the head, or arms out to the side in a T shape if you prefer to lie still. But if you've got your hands underneath your head, you can bring in your elbows in and out. So just working across the chest and into the back of the shoulder. So I want you to feel those shoulder blades moving, squeezing together as your elbows go out to the side and spreading out as your elbows come into your head. And again, lie still and breathe deep and feel your rib cage expanding as you breathe in. You might need to fidget around if you're feeling that you've pinched across your back. Alright, so fill those lungs up. You might feel a stretch quite deep into your shoulder, right into your armpit with this one. Or you might not. Depends how you're feeling. Depends what time you started the gym. I know some of you are getting some of this gym down your neck from the photos I'm seeing on Facebook. No judgment. Okay, a little bit more work for the shoulder. So take your elbows out to the side with your fingers facing up. And just do one at a time to start with. So turn your head and look at whichever arm you're going to start with. And you're moving it backwards and forwards. It doesn't need to touch the floor. So try and keep your wrist straight. Sometimes people try and bend the wrist to touch the floor. I don't need you to touch the floor. I just need to work into the shoulder a little bit. And then you can do the other one. I'm not going to turn my head and do the other one because I'll be talking to the wall, but you get the gist. You just do the same with the other one. And then if you want, you can do both together. So looking at the ceiling. Just working into the front and back. Really good for the rotation in your shoulder, this one. If you're feeling your elbows getting sore, then you're pressing too hard with your hands. Sometimes people complain about their elbow. Don't push so hard. And then you can stay in that stretch for a breath. Don't keep pushing though, because your elbow will get sore. But just staying there and letting the arms get a little bit heavier. A breath is long enough really. Breath in and out, and it encourages you to practice that ribcage breathing as well. If you prefer just to stay working one arm on its own, especially if you've got any injury in the shoulder, just working it on its own, it gives you a bit more time with it. Alright, and then we'll get into our midsection with our twisting. So arms out to the side, palms facing up, reset the shoulders if you want to, reset the hips, knees and feet together or cushion between the knees if you prefer, and twist. So your shoulders are staying flat to the floor and your hands are staying pretty still, they're not moving around a lot. So you're twisting from the centre. Remember, if you want to, you can turn your head and look away from your knees just to get a bit more neck stretching. And you're trying to bring this hip up and over. So if your knees separate slightly, don't worry about it. But try and stack your feet if you can. And the weight of the top leg is just going to help you with the stretch. Just releases all around, all that compression that we put in the lower back. Sitting down just releases it all out. And remember, you've got choices with this one. You can straighten the top leg and push out. So that action of pushing through the heel brings the hip over a little bit further. So it's quite a nice extra bit. I don't know if I've given myself enough space. Oh look, good thing about having little legs. Enough space. So that's your one option. And hip replacements, remember, that is really your only option. But the rest of you, if you want to, you can cross one leg over the top. So whatever suits you, whatever feels like it gives you the best stretch. We're looking to loosen up and feel the muscles starting to loosen, the joints starting to mobilise. And if you've crossed your legs, just change whenever you fancy. And a little bit more internal. Again, hip replacement, so you just come back to the knees together just to support that joint. But the rest of you, knees and feet a bit wider, so your feet are about the width of your mat. Leggings need a bit of adjustment, knees apart. And then as you twist, you're going to find that leg comes in, so you're getting your internal rotation. So you're letting your feet rock from side to side. And it just loosens around inside that hip joint a little bit more. Your roadkill exercise. So with these stretches, you stay there as long as feels right for you. You might want to stay in a stretch a little bit longer than I am. Kind of think it feels a bit boring for you to watch me staying in a stretch in the zone, so I'm moving around a little bit more. But you stay there as long as you want to. Using your breath is good. Sorry, what a stupid thing to say, using your breath is good. Yeah, I meant as timing. So if you stay there for a breath in and a breath out, it encourages you to breathe a little bit slower and it gives your muscles time to relax. And then we move a little bit more into the lower back. So maybe you can do this with your feet staying down on the floor and let the pelvis rock backwards and forwards, just to start to loosen the lower back. If that suits you, stay with that. Otherwise, you can bring the knees into the chest. Don't yank though. I mean, some of you, especially those with a tight lower back and tight hamstrings, it pains me to see pulling on those legs because you're forcing a stretch. So you're just holding the knees and just letting them rock in and out. So you feel that curve in your back, just stretch out and come back again as you're rocking the knees. And then you can hold them and you can hug them in, hands around the front or back of the knees. But if it doesn't feel like a hug, it feels more like a grab and pull, it's not right. Stay with the rocking. You might need to reset your head and shoulders. Sometimes the neck, sometimes the chin pins up when you stretch the hamstrings, so you might need to reset your head and your shoulders and breathe nice and deep. So if you are comfortable lying still, let the floor do the work for a little bit. So kind of let go and breathe. And you'll start to feel that stretch in the bum, in the glute muscles and the hamstrings and the lower back. Use your breath. While we're here, might start to feel your feet moving. It's kind of instinctive really. So start to circle your feet as well, so you're getting some circulation going around your ankles and some mobility in the ankles and the feet. If you prefer just to put your feet back to the floor, you can do your ankle circles here. I'm clicking today. Okay, and then if you put your feet down, we'll start to stretch the back of the legs. So to start with, a little bit less impact is just to stretch out along the floor. So you're stretching, no mind for cramp. Don't overdo it, let the legs straighten as much as it wants to. And if it starts to feel that bite or cramp, bring it back in again, stretching it out. Add the ankle rotation on if you want to. Get the blood down into the Achilles. Start to circle it round. And again, you can stay with this low version. If you've got any lower back issues or discal or vertebral issues in the lower back, this is probably as much as you feel comfortable doing. But otherwise, you can stretch up. Now remember, we're going for a stretch, not necessarily a full straighten at the knee. We just want to feel the back of the leg straighten. Stretch. So what I want you to avoid, remember, is that pushing forward. Usually in the class I'll come along and correct you. I can't do that now. So you're thinking about pushing up rather than just getting the leg straight. And bit by bit, the leg will straighten a little bit more. If you've got very tight legs, if you get a strap, so you can use a dressing gown belt or a real belt, and just push against that if you really struggle to get this leg to stretch. And you can add your circle on with your ankle if you want to, mobilising the calf ankle, Achilles and the foot. Hands at the back of the leg if you want to support the leg while you do your foot circling is fine. Start to stretch it out. And then if you're comfortable doing so, you can have both feet off the floor. Just starting to kick up, so we're stretching out the lower back at the same time. Remember, if any of these stretches aren't comfortable, don't do them. Go back to what we did before. Circle it. And then you can do both together if you want to. Good for your circulation. It's good for mobilising the ankles and the feet. Good for checking that your shoes match. Who cares? Nobody's going to see your feet anyway, are they? Circle round. Might be getting yourself ready for the pub tomorrow night. There is no way I'm going near the pub tomorrow night. I'm staying well away. Alright. Okay, another good old stretch out. Lengthen the spine. Push your heels away. Tuck your heels under. Circle your wrists. Get everything moving around. We're going to do some sitting up work. So to sit up, bend your knees. Either put your hands underneath you into the curve of your back and push yourself up, or if you prefer, roll to your side and bring yourself up. Now, sitting, as I've said before, it's quite a challenge on the floor because your bum and your feet are on the same level, so it's quite hard. So if it's too much, then put something under your bum so your bum's a bit higher. So you can use a cushion, you can use a block, seating block if you want to. What we've done in the class quite often, rather than have to faff around and move about, is just roll the mat up a little bit, and that makes quite a bit of difference. So try that if you want. Remember, what we're looking to avoid is a rounded spine. That's pulling your tailbone under you. So we want to make sure that you're right on your sitting bones and your tailbone is straight down, almost like you're trying to stick your bum out a bit behind you. Reach your head up for the ceiling, and that will just draw your belly in slightly, much better than you slouching. Lengthen the spine. Okay, and then we're going to twist. So put one hand behind you just to support the weight of your shoulder, and then you're going to turn in that direction. So you're just looking around to the side. Come back to centre, and the same in the other direction. I'll do it facing forward. Twisting. So I want you to feel your shoulders moving, but not your hips. Turning around. Keep reaching up through the top of your head. Lengthening the spine. If you find these sitting exercises uncomfortable, you can't do them properly if you're in pain. You just can't do it. So your other option, remember, is to come up onto your knees and twist. So we're just trying to get that mobility through the centre of the body. You can use your hands to help. So that hand can sit against the side of the leg, but don't pull it in because you'll feel it. You'll be pulling into your IT band and then you'll feel it into the side of the leg. Just stretching, just holding onto that leg. Stay there and breathe. Just, you might find as you stay there for that 1 or 2 breaths now, that shoulder just tweaks round a little bit more. Just work a little bit deeper into that move. So twist round, reach up through the top of your head, breathe in and breathe out, and you just might find that shoulder's able to rotate back just slightly more. Staying on both sitting bones underneath you. Sometimes we tend to reach round and the one side lifts up, so keep it square to the floor. And then a bit of chest stretching. So hands behind you, not too far to start, especially if you've got quite a tight upper body. So you just want to pull your shoulders back so you feel that lift of your rib cage, and then relax. So you're pulling back. You can exaggerate it by letting the shoulders come forwards as you come out of that stretch if you want to. So you're pulling your shoulders back and puffing your chest out. relaxing, and you can let your shoulders come forward and stretch across your back if you want to at that point. So you can stay with this, or put your hands a little bit further back and flat and turn them whichever way is comfortable for your wrists, and then you're going to find the move is a little bit bigger, and you start to feel it in your arms as well. So shoulders pull back and down, and chest goes forward and up. So we're working the upper back. People sometimes complain about their wrists in this move because rather than using the torso, they're pushing the whole body forward using their hands. So weight is, if you have got your fingers facing forward, weight is in the heels of your hands and stays there. So the way you lift is to pull your shoulders back and down and lift your chest forward and up. And then again, you can exaggerate it by allowing your shoulders to come forward as you come out of the move. Pull back and down and lift. Press into the heels of your hands if you've got your fingers facing forwards. Push down. You're going to start to work the arms as well. You're going to feel it in that rotator cuff. If it's too much, bring your hands closer and go back to what we were doing before, where you don't get so much shoulder stretch. One more. Lift the torso. And then sit forward, and it's usually up, after that one. So just give your shoulders a bit of a release. Give them a rub if you want to, if they're feeling a bit sore after that one. Good bit of leg work. So this one, you're going to stay sitting up, right on your sitting bones. You're going to bend one leg. I would put the hands at the back of the thigh if you're likely to pull on the leg, just so you're not pressing into your knee. If you want to, you can lean against the settee or against the wall for this one if you want to, because what I don't want is a lean back. So prepare yourself, one leg bent. Reach your head for the ceiling, and then when you're ready, the straight leg, you're going to use your thigh muscles to lift your heel off the floor. You lift up and down. Keep your chest lifted. You might get a little bit of cramp the first couple of times because it's not used to it, so give it a rub. Sit up nice and straight and have another go. And it's surprisingly tough. If you don't like this bent leg option, you can do it with both legs straight, and you can maybe try it with your hands behind you. So you're finding a way where you can feel these quads, these thigh muscles working. It's good for getting some mobility in the hip. Sit up straight, keep lifting your torso. Your body will start to sag down. It's a little cheat that, because when it sags down, it moves the hip back and makes it easier to lift the leg. Sneaky this body is. Keep up. So if you want that crease at your hip, then try another 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Change legs, and there's a good chance you did your best leg, so buckle up. This one's going to be even harder, so reset your hips, hands around the front or back of the leg. Remember, if you found on the other one that you tended to yank against your bent leg, then your hand needs to be under the knee, not pushing into the kneecap, or behind you if you find that easier. Don't lean back. Lift him. Nice and smooth. If it feels a bit achy or a bit crampy, stop the move, give it a bit of a massage, get the blood around the muscles, and then have another go. Keep lifting the torso. Do it this way, I just realise you can't really see me on the leg, can you? That's it. Keep lifting. Let's try another 4. Here we go. 4. Keep lifting the torso. 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Now we're going to still stay with the leg, but rather than lift it up, we're going to move it out to the side. So you can put your hands behind you if you want, sit up nice and straight. You're just going to lift your heels slightly and move your leg out to the side. Back in and down, and you can alternate. So it lifts, moves out and in. Now pelvis needs to stay still. Zip up. Pull the abdominals tight. Hands behind you just to support the pelvis, because this is a tough one. Lift. So your heel's not scraping the mat. This is going to get you to work the outside of the leg. So it's building up all support around that hip. You're welcome. I can hear you saying, oh, thank you, Sharon, this is lovely. What else would I be doing? Keep lifting that torso. Remember, your body's going to try and drop back, so it's easier to lift the leg. Don't let it. Couple more. Doesn't matter how far your leg moves out, you're just using these abductors, these outside leg muscles to move it. Good. Smash and give your knees a bend. If you're feeling quite crampy around the hip, you can do this sitting, or you can lie back down again, where we just let the legs rock. Hip replacements, be very careful. It'd probably be better to do it sitting if you have got hip replacement, just letting it rock just a little bit. You don't want to go past that midline. The rest of you can go a bigger stretch, or you can lie down if you want to. Releases around the hips after that one. Good. We've got one more to do here, and then we'll be lying down again. So we've got leg pull front. It's going to build strength in all the way down the torso really, and into the shoulders and the arms, but it's a tough one. So hands underneath the shoulders, fingers facing whichever way is right for you, and it takes a couple of goes just to make sure we got it right. Feet apart, and you might find this is as much as you want to do, so you're pulling the shoulders back and down and feeling that lift as your back muscles start to work. And you can stay with this if you want, or pull the shoulders back and down, press into the hands, press a little bit into the feet, be careful of the cramp, and come up to a table. So you uncurl, pulling your belly in, pulling your shoulders back and down, lifting your torso and back down. Careful as you come up that you don't slide forward, because you put too much weight in the shoulder if you do that. So press into your feet and your hands about the same amount, pull the shoulders back and lift. Press down a little bit more into those 4 points of contact with the floor, lift and down. And you can stay with this version. This is more about stretching through the hips, stretching the shoulders, or you can come into the plank version, which is a little bit more about strength in the legs. So one leg bent, one leg straight, pull the shoulders back and then lift. So you've got 3 real points of contact with the floor now. So you're pushing through those 3 points, lifting the torso and back down. Mind you don't slide forward. So pushing through your 3 points and lifting up. Stay there for a breath if you can. Changing legs every so often. So your point of contact with your legs changes. Keep checking that your weight is in your hands. If you've slid forward, then you've got your arms too far behind you, so that's going to hurt your shoulders. And then you can reduce the points of contact further if you want to by having your legs straight. So pull back, and as you lift up, your arms are having to do a lot more work now because you've only got your heels resting on the floor. Good. So remember, it's all about technique. If you're finding you're coming up and you're in a scoop shape, then you know that's not working. Like, you can feel it in your back. So go back to what we've done before. Maybe go back to one leg bent, or go back to both legs bent, so you've got more points of contact. You're trying to keep your body as straight as you can. Pull back and lift. So you're pushing down into the floor and lifting away from it. Do me one more if you can, whichever level you're doing. And then you can sit down and you can give yourself a bit of a hug. Those shoulders are going to have worked, whichever level you did. So we're going to lie down on the floor into your supine and do some strength for the torso and the legs. Give the shoulders a rest. So lie yourself down, block underneath your head if you want to, remember. Right, this is where we try not to push heavy into the floor. We're going to lengthen along the floor right instead. So reset your hips and your shoulders, get your neck comfy. Try and space your spine as if somebody's pulling your head and shoulders away from your pelvis. Lengthen out. That hopefully will have switched the abdominals on. Sometimes people say they kind of feel like they're pushing into the floor, which is really flexing your back. We don't want that. You want to stretch out along the mat, like we're lying on that water and trying to balance ourselves, and then we're going to start with the marching. So you're just going to lift one foot a couple of inches off the floor and put it down, and the same on the other leg. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we've lengthened and tightened the centre sufficiently that when we transfer our weight from one foot to the other, the body stays as level as possible, so we're not got any twisting or dropping. So this move, it's an exercise, it's a good one, but it's also a sort of a level. It's kind of making sure that we've got everything switched on. So we're lifting the foot, holding it for a second or two, making sure the pelvis is level, shoulders are relaxed, and we feel balanced. We don't feel that we're tipping from side to side. It might even be that you need your feet a bit wider apart. Sometimes the pelvis feels a bit unstable because the feet are too close. It's just giving you that little bit of time before we go into the bigger moves, just to make sure we've got enough stabilising muscles switched on. And you might want to stay with this. I find this is a really effective move. It don't look very exciting, but I find this is really good for just building the strength around the pelvis to keep it level. So if you do suffer from any issues around that pelvis with that deep lower back pain, then this is a good one to do because it just helps you build up that stability around the hip. But otherwise, if you're starting to get a bit bored, then you can come to knee fold, and the difference is the leg lifts higher. So we're working into the hip mobility as well. Make sure you're bending your knee. Sometimes people bend at the hip and forget about bending at the knee. So 90 degrees at both. Holding it for your 5 seconds. And then float the foot back to the floor. Same other time. And the challenge now is that we do use that hip joint rather than sinking back into the lower back. So you've got some weight across the pelvis. Lift the leg. Hold it for your 5 seconds. Leg muscles are working. You're going to feel them after that sitting work. And down. So we're trying to keep the pelvis really stable and use that mobility at the hip to flex and lift. And at the knee. Holding it for your 5 seconds allows you to think about breathing without releasing the abdominal muscles. Then come to double knee fold if you want. And remember the modification on this one, if you're quite arched in the back, just to help you, bring the knee in slightly closer, so you're just reducing that angle there at the hip. It will tilt the pelvis back and allow you to lift the second leg more comfortably. But you're still using your abdominals, you're not just relaxing into the floor. Lengthen the spine. Count to 5, one at a time, feet to the floor. Lift, lengthen, zip up, float the other leg up. Check your feet position. Sometimes the feet drift about, so line them up with your knees and your hips. One at a time, feet back down. You can change which leg leads if you want to. Leg muscles are switched on. Neck and shoulder muscles are relaxed. Again, lift, lift. Breathe. Keep the abdominals tight while you breathe from your rib cage. And down. Good. You might want to do a couple of quick hip lifts after that one, just to release the legs a little bit, because the quads will have worked quite hard on mine have, so I've only got mine to work with really. I can't feel what you're feeling, so I'm just going to release just a little bit, because we've got scissors to do next. So scissors, rather than just lift and hold, the leg's going to move, so we're going to work through the hip joint. So I'm going to start again, level 1, so relax the shoulders. You're going to bring the one leg up and you're going to bring it in a little bit closer. So you lengthen the hamstrings and then you dip it down towards the floor. So you're working through that hip joint. Pelvis is staying neutral, it's not swinging backwards and forwards, so you're working within the joint. Check your foot on this one. Sometimes we get cramp in the toes on this one because we're trying to lock the foot out to touch the floor. You don't have to touch the floor. So nice soft toes, working through the hip. A few on each leg, somewhere between 5 and 10 reps, depending on how you're feeling. Then you move to the other leg, neutral pelvis, moving through the hip. So you're actually stretching the hamstrings a little bit, working that hip joint. So this is level 1 again, 5 to 10 off each rep, off each leg. Oh dear, I can't think when I'm lying flat. If you find level 1 is the right level for you, then just repeat it again, because it's really good for your hips and your leg strength. But if you want to try level 2, come to double knee fold. So tilt the pelvis back slightly if needs be, zip up, float the other leg up, so you're in your double knee fold, and then your legs are going to alternate. So as one leg comes in, the other leg moves out. How far the leg moves depends on the stability you've got in the centre. What we don't want to do is push the belly out and arch the back, just so that we can touch the foot to the floor. So we're just working through the hips. It's a tough exercise, this. You want to feel that you're holding the centre nice and tight. If you feel like you're grabbing on, then it's too much. Go back to just one leg. Lengthen the spine and breathe. So you're working through your hips. And how you count your reps is up to you. You can have 1 rep as both legs moving once, or 1 rep as one leg moving and then 2 reps as the second leg moves. So it's up to you how many reps you do, but you want to feel that you're in charge. This centre is tight. Everything starts to shake, then you stop. I've lost count anyway. I don't know how many reps I've done. When you've had enough, put your feet down, and then hip lifts is going to feel really good. So plant your feet, take your block from underneath your head now. You can put it between your knees if you wanted to make the inner thigh muscles work a little bit harder. Keep the knees hip distance apart and lift your hips. The first couple, especially after what we've just been doing, might not be a full lift. We're just trying to release the hip. Just get a little bit of stretch and into the quad. So the first few, don't worry if you're not coming up to your full height. We've just got to do it a bit at a time. If you're getting crampy in the back of the leg, your feet might be too far away and you're pushing into your heels, so bring them in a bit further. Set your shoulders where you want. I don't want you to slide along the mat. So again, your points of contact with the floor are your shoulders, your head and your feet, and they're staying fixed. And then when it starts to loosen up, stay up in that bridge a little bit longer, squeeze your bum. Think about the lengthening and lifting. Back to my bra advert, lengthen and lift. Shoulders relaxed. Good. Check your neck. Sometimes we push down on the head and hurt the neck, so just check your neck's not doing too much. Straighten through those hips. If you want to add on, adjust your feet a little bit if you want to, because we're going to do one leg. So you're going to come up to a bridge. You're going to push down a little bit more on the supporting leg and lift the other foot. Keep your hips up. Straighten the leg if you can, up towards the ceiling and down. Change the weight over to the leg. Push down a little bit to keep you upright. Lift the foot. Extend the leg. And back down. I'd only do one lift off each leg and then back down because it's quite tiring. So you go up. Set your weight on whichever foot you're going to keep down. A little bit of pressure through that foot. Lift the other foot off the floor so you come to your 90-degree angle and then straighten underneath if you can. Push down through that supporting foot. Bend the leg, put it down, transfer the weight to the other foot. When you're ready, lift and extend this leg up to the ceiling. Push down a little bit through your supporting foot. Bend and down. I'm going to do once more. Stay with both feet on the floor if it suits you better. Otherwise up. Press down a little bit through your supporting foot, squeeze your bum on that side, lift the other foot, Keep the hips up, extend the leg if you can, push a little bit more through the supporting foot, bend and down. Last time, push down through the supporting foot enough to allow the other foot to lift. Extend, push through that supporting foot, bend and down. Bring your knees into your chest. Good. Lovely. Right, bit of work on your side, so over you go. Get your shoulders comfortable. Hand underneath your head. Nice long spine into chest opener. So knees bent, one in front if you find that more comfortable. Lift the rib cage slightly, keep your spine in a nice long line. Arm lifts and back. Press down a little bit into your lower legs. Up and down. So that chest is opening to the ceiling. We're not reaching and grabbing for the floor. The rotation, supporting the head. Try not to drop the waist into the floor because that will curve your back. So push through your tailbone, through the top of your head. Support and reach. Stay there for your breath if you want to. Make sure the knees stay heavy into the mat. If you're feeling discomfort around the lower back and the hip, try one leg in front, and you can put a cushion under this top knee if you want to, just to give you a bit of support around the pelvis if it needs it. Really nice and deep. You'll be breathing into your side, opening it up. No side plank today. Woohoo! Good. One more. Reach up and twist. Remember, you can do more if you want to. If you find this stretch is just what you need, then just stop the video and do a few more. You will come back in later. I won't tell you more. Good. Then we're going to get into this hip a little bit. So we'll start just loosening it up. So a bit of hip opener. So you've got your heels kind of level with your bum. Rib cage lifted. Shoulder nice and comfy. And then you're lifting that top knee away from the bottom knee. Feet are just hinging. I know it can be disappointing this one because in our heads the knee goes all the way up to the ceiling. But very few of us have got that amount of mobility. If you have, great. But most of us haven't. I haven't. All you want to feel is that your bum muscles are working. So no leaning back. Lift. Good. You can stay there, so lift your knee and squeeze your bum. Think about a £10 note squeezed, and you'll feel these bum muscles working, and it's just getting that mobility around the hips. So just do a couple more of these. Lift, squeeze your tenner. So that's for mobility around the hip, and then we want some more strength around it as well. So just bring your feet forward a bit so you're in your L shape. Lift your rib cage, and now you're going to lift, as well as lifting the knee, you're going to lift the foot. So you come up to that sort of hip distance apart between the feet and the knees. Top hand just sits on that top thigh for something to push up against. So you're using these leg muscles to lift and lower. I want you to try and stay there for 5 seconds if you can. So you're lifting, pushing against your hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and down. And do it again. So what we're looking for, remember when we lift the leg, that we haven't let the foot lift higher than the knee. That's really common, that, because I think the lower leg's just so much lighter, it tends to lift faster. So just square up. Use your hand if you want to, just to give something for your leg to push against. And down. Good. Check the angle that you're at. Sometimes the hip drops back and we end up with a kind of a 45-degree angle there. So we want to line that up so we're parallel to the floor. Once more, so lift, push your thigh against your hand. You might find that you're pushing down on the other leg as well, so you're working the other leg while you're at it. and relax. Good. Give that leg a nice rub. A good stretch after that one is move the bottom leg back out the way and put the top knee down on the floor. You might want to put a cushion if you've got a hard floor like this. You might want to put a towel or something under your knee, but you're just bringing that leg forward and giving it a bit of a release. Give those muscles a bit of a stretch out, because that's quite a tough one. And then we've got scissors to do. We've done scissors, yeah, but that was prone scissors. This is side scissors. So stretch out, lengthen now, square the hips, pull the rib cage up. Now, bendy people, don't over-exaggerate that stretch. I don't want your chest pushing forward. So the back of your head and the back of your tailbone are pretty much level. Find your balance, Sharon. Lift your top leg. If you are really struggling to balance, just bend the bottom leg again. Or if you find it's uncomfortable for your bottom hip, square your hips. So if you want to do this with your bottom leg bent and still, that's fine. Top leg about hip height. I'll do it with both legs, but you just do the top leg if you prefer. And one leg comes forward as the other leg goes back. So you're scissoring. Now you need to stretch your spine. Sometimes on this we find the bottom leg doesn't really move, it just slides and bends at the knee. If it is doing that, just keep it still. You need to be able to move from the hip. So stretch out through your feet and scissor the legs. If your feet start to brush against each other, you need to lift that top leg a little bit higher. Use the outer thigh muscles, zip the centre. And you can stay in that stretch a second or two if you wanted to really open up the hips. Push, use your leg muscles. Push through your feet. Just be careful of your bottom shoulder. Sometimes you push down in that for stability. You've got to push through your feet and through the top of your head. And then you can bend your legs. Good. Got the other side to do now, so push yourself up. Grab a drink if you want on the way, over to the other side. Let's grab a drink, I mentioned it, might as well. Okay, so get yourself comfy on your other side. Block or cushion or towel. Towel's quite useful. You can roll it up and just put it between your shoulder and your head if you find your neck gets all uncomfortable. Get yourself comfy. Knees bent, top leg on the floor in front if you prefer. Pull the rib cage up, arm out in front, into your chest opener when you're ready. So lift and twist. A little bit of pressure in the knees so we can get that rotation. And back, take your time. Don't rush the move. Breathe into the side of your body. Supporting your head. This top shoulder feels nice and heavy as you've reached. And then releases as you come back. So I've finished my cycling challenge. Those of you who saw it on Facebook, thank you for the comments. I don't know what to do myself now. Done with cycling. Got really bad on Wednesday. I had to do some housework. Oh no. Find something else really quick. Can't be doing that. One more. And then into the hips. So we start off with our mobility. So heels about level with your bum, not too close in though because you won't get any movement, but sort of a V shape, rib cage lifted, and then you're lifting the top knee away from the bottom knee. Try not to let the hip drop back, so you can do this one again, pressed against the settee or against the wall, so you can only lift the knee, and it's just making those glute muscles work to open up the hip. And you can lift and squeeze just to get them to work. Don't be disappointed if your knee doesn't lift very far. It doesn't matter. Muscles are still working just as hard. Just working on your mobility. We've all got our natural range of movement. Some people have more than others. But what you're trying to do is maintain your movement, not trying to get the same as everybody else. Lift and squeeze that bum. You might feel it stretching on the inside there. Then we've got to work on strength. So we'll do one more here. And then we just bring the feet forward a bit. And this is going to work on strength down the side of the leg. So just let your top hand rest against your leg. Pull the rib cage up, so remember we're not collapsing down into the floor. Lift up, and then try and lift the whole of that top leg away from the bottom leg. Hold it for about 5 seconds. Don't hold your breath. And down. So the points to check for is that sometimes we let the foot lifts before the knee, and then we end up in that shape. So we've got to square up. So think about lifting your thigh. Another thing that tends to happen is we worry about lifting the leg, so we start to drop back. And then you know that because the angle of the leg is shooting off upwards. You want to be straight forward. Hand resting on the leg gives you something to push against. And you might find it switches the bottom leg on as well. I used to nag you about not doing that, and then it went on another course. These courses are marvellous. I thought, well, you can't, because legs will work together. You've just got to make sure that the bottom leg isn't dominating and the top leg's not doing anything. So hand against that top leg to push against. So you count it in about 5. Enough to feel that the effort to stop that leg dropping back down. Really important for your balance, these side leg muscles are. If your abductors are weak, then your knees, you see people, they walk and they kind of look like Bambi. The leg kind of collapses in at the middle. Don't tell them that. Did you know you look like Bambi when you walk? It doesn't go down well. Lift. Push against that leg. Against that hand rather. Good. Keep the chest lifted. Remember, we tend to, I'm doing it then, I realise, we tend to focus on one bit and forget the rest. So lengthen the spine. Lovely. Okay. Scissors. So straighten the legs. Remember, if you're very bendy and you find these side exercises really difficult, rather than going into a banana back to try and lock out, keep the bottom leg bent, keep the spine long, otherwise have both legs straight. Gap between your feet. Use your inner thigh muscles to lift the bottom leg. If it doesn't want to lift, keep it bent and down on the floor. But if you're okay with both legs straight, scissoring. Keeping the pelvis really still. If your neck's playing up, reset the shoulders. And scissor. Lengthen through this top leg so you're not pushing too much down on that bottom hip. Hold that stretch for a second or two if you want to. Just be careful of this bottom shoulder. Push through your feet instead. If you push out through your feet, then you'll find that the pressure under the shoulder isn't quite as much. Or you don't have to hold the stretch if you prefer just to move. But make sure you're using your hips. So if this bottom leg is staying still and just flicking from the knee, keep it down. So you want to be doing the splits. Pulling the rib cage up. Stretching through this top leg. And then bench legs. What's next? Right, up onto your hands and knees. It feels quite nice to be off the floor for a bit. So up onto your hands and knees. We're nearly there now. Nearly done. Hands underneath the shoulders. Knees underneath the hips. And start circling. Stretching out the fingers. Loosening up those hips after the work you've done. If you want to work your feet a little bit, tuck your toes under. So when you sit your hips back, you'll stretch out your toes as well. moving through. You can go in both directions. You can do a bit of a figure of 8 if you want to, if you're feeling a little bit ambitious. Moving it through the side of your body, sitting a little bit deeper back as your legs start to loosen up, pushing down into your hands. Okay. A little bit of strength for the upper body and the core with our knee hovers. Remember, if your wrists are playing up at the moment, you can do knee hovers down on your forearms if you want to. You're still going to get your knee hovers in without the strain on the wrists. So up to you. If you are standing, your hands directly underneath the shoulders. Toes can be flat or tucked, whichever suits you better. But you're going to push down into your hands, pull your belly tight and hover your knees an inch or 2 off the floor. And you're going to breathe and hold it for 5 seconds. And back down. Now, try not to hunch into your shoulders. So nice wide line across your back, pushing palms down into the floor. Try both feet positions, see which one suits you better. Not too high with the knees. I don't want you to feel the blood rushing into your head. 5, 4, push away. 3, 2, 1, and down. Have another go when you're ready. So you push into the palms and the fingers. Widen across your shoulders and lift. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and down. Have a sit back into child's pose. I'm going to build that up if you want to. If that feels like that's enough work at this stage, no problem at all. You've worked hard and we've nearly done. But if you want to, we can bring it into a back stretch with the V shape. So you hover your knees. And then you push your hips up. Push down into the hands and try and bring your torso a little bit closer in. And then you go back to the hover. Knees down on the floor if you need to, but hover if you can. Push into your hands and push your hips up. Try and bring your arms, your ears sort of level with the arms. Pushing your hips up. And then now, hamstrings. If you've got tight hamstrings, there's something to watch for here. Sometimes if we've got tight hamstrings, we go up with a rounded spine. Push into your hands, push your hips up and try and straighten your back. Back to hover. And push up. So I want you to push your hips up and away and pull your chest in. Don't let your sternum pull into your spine. Push it away slightly. Back down, hover. Do one more if you can. Push up, push into your hands, push your hips up. Push that sternum out slightly, that breastbone, push it out. Now while we're up here, if you can, I'd just like you to pedal your feet. So you're alternating bending and straightening your knees. Don't let your hips move, just a nice stretch. If you don't like that, on your hands and knees, push your leg out behind you and push through your heel that way if you prefer. But if you can, up and pedal. Just to stretch these legs out a little bit more. Keep pushing your hips up. Don't worry about how far your heel is from the floor. You're just looking for that stretch in the lower leg. And then back down onto your knees. A bit of child's pose to finish. She says adjusting her clothing. If you don't like child's pose, remember child's pose is this one where we sit quite deep into the hips and the knees. If it's not for you, onto your bum and a bit of back stretching that way. That will do your back just as much without putting in the load in the hip, in the knees and the ankles. But if you can, child's pose, big toes together, knees nice and wide, and sit back. You might want to stay high, and if you come off your hands, that will give you a good quad stretch. If they're very tight, that will stretch them out. You can then go back onto your hands, keeping your hips quite high. So it's a good stretch for the hips without putting too much load into the knees. And you can then go down onto your elbows if you want to. Down onto your hands if you can. But try and keep your hips low. So find a position where you're not sticking your backside up. Whatever suits you, and sink the hips down. Stretching out the ankles as well. Going to come up to standing. So from here, one foot to the floor, push down on that foot, then the other foot. Any osteoporosis, come straight up, walking your hands up your legs. Otherwise, you can do a little bit of back stretching. So if you extend your bum up to the ceiling, let your head sink down. Yeah, put your hands on your legs wherever they reach, or if they reach the floor, you can let them hang to the floor. Let the weight just gently rock through your feet. I don't want anybody to end up on the nose. Just let the weight rock through your feet. Just decompresses the spine. If you have got any osteoporosis, you're already up there wondering what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to rock on your feet up here. But the rest are just going to have a little bit of a hang. Just tailbone up. Crown of the head down, so you're looking between your legs, looking at the wall behind you. Hands on the legs and start to slowly uncurl. Point your tailbone down between your heels and build over it. Roll the shoulders back, lift the torso. I don't want any sagging into those hips, I want it to lift out those hips. Roll the shoulders, I want it to feel lighter and taller. A little bit of a twist, so let the body rotate around. Keep lifting out of those hips and you'll get more movement. Hands in your back pockets and lift your torso. And relax it. Lift it up. Relax it. Good. Right, my dears, that's another class done. We're in July. I can't believe it, we're in July. Right, well, it's been good talking to you. Again, send me any feedback you've got. It's nice to hear from you all. Take care. If you are going to the pub tomorrow, be careful. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.